I stared at the screen, my coffee growing cold in the mug beside my keyboard. The numbers on the spreadsheet blurred together as my mind wandered to the conversation from 3 nights ago. Zara's voice still echoed in my head, sharp and dismissive. My ex is still in my life. Deal with it. Those words had hit me like a slap, not because she'd said them, but because of how easily they'd rolled off her tongue, like she'd been practicing. My name is Brooks Carven, and I'm a systems analyst for a mid-sized tech company here in Millbrook, Maine. It's the kind of job that requires attention to detail, pattern recognition, and an almost obsessive need to organize information. Skills that, as it turned out, would serve me well in ways I never expected. The morning light filtered through our kitchen window as I heard Zara moving around upstairs, getting ready for another day at her finance firm. She'd been distant lately, more than usual. Our conversations had become transactional, reduced to logistics about bills, schedules, and household maintenance. The warmth we'd once shared had evaporated like morning mist. I pulled up our shared Google Calendar, something we'd set up years ago to coordinate our lives. What I found there made my stomach clench. AV dinner, 7 p.m. Consult meeting, EV. Late appointment, E. The entries were scattered throughout the past 3 months, always on evenings when I was working late or out of town, always cryptic, always involving those initials, EV Eliot Voss, her ex-boyfriend from college, the gallery owner with the perfectly styled hair and the smug smile who'd somehow wormed his way back into my wife's life under the guise of professional consulting. I opened a new browser tab and navigated to our joint credit card account. The charges were all there, hidden in plain sight. Expensive restaurants, wine bars, places Zara and I hadn't been to in years, if ever. La Bernardine, 247.83, The Glass House, 189.45, Rosewood Tavern, 156.22, all on nights when she'd claimed to be working late or attending professional development seminars. My hands moved across the keyboard with mechanical precision. Screenshot, save, print. Each piece of evidence carefully cataloged and stored in a folder I labeled Project Clarity. The irony wasn't lost on me. My wife, the finance manager who preached about transparency and accountability in her professional life, had been cooking the books of our marriage for months. "Brooks?" Zara's voice drifted down from upstairs. "Have you seen my black blazer?" "Closet," I called back, my voice steadier than I felt. "Where it always is." She appeared in the kitchen doorway a few minutes later, looking polished and professional in her navy dress and heels. Her dark hair was pulled back in the severe bun she favored for important meetings. She barely glanced at me as she grabbed her travel mug from the counter. "I'll be late tonight," she said, checking her phone. "Client dinner." "With Eliot?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. She froze, her fingers tightening around her phone. When she looked up, her expression was carefully neutral. "It's a professional consultation, Brooks. We've been over this." "Right. Professional." I took a sip of my coffee, studying her face. "Funny how all your professional consultations happen at romantic restaurants." Her laugh was brittle. "Don't be ridiculous. Eliot and I have a working relationship. Nothing more." "And his wife is okay with this working relationship?" Something flickered across her features. Annoyance? Guilt? It was gone too quickly to identify. "Vivian understands the nature of business relationships," she said. "Maybe you should try to do the same." She grabbed her purse and headed for the door, pausing only to add, "I'll be home around 11. Don't wait up." The door closed with a sharp click, leaving me alone with the evidence of her lies spread across my laptop screen. I sat there for a long moment, processing what had just happened. The casual dismissal, the deflection, the way she'd invoked Vivian Voss's name like a shield, as if the woman's supposed understanding somehow legitimized whatever was happening between Zara and her ex-husband. But what if Vivian didn't understand? What if she didn't even know? I pulled up the county clerk's website and searched for property records. It took 15 minutes to find what I was looking for. Vivian Voss, listed as co-owner of a townhouse on Maple Street. The public filing included a mailing address. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. What I was contemplating would change everything. Once I sent that email, there would be no going back. No pretending I hadn't seen the patterns, hadn't connected the dots. But Zara had made her choice. She'd chosen her ex over our marriage, chosen deception over honesty. She'd looked me in the eye and told me to deal with it. Fine, I would deal with it. I opened a new email and began typing. "Dear Mrs. Voss, I hope this message finds you well. I'm writing regarding what appears to be ongoing professional consultations between my wife, Zara Carven, and your husband, Eliot. I've attached some calendar entries and receipts that I thought you might find interesting. I'm not looking to cause drama, just seeking confirmation of the nature of these business meetings. Respectfully, Brooks Carven. I attached the screenshots and receipts, double-checked the email address, and hit send before I could second-guess myself. The response came faster than I'd expected. Less than 2 hours later, my phone chimed with a new message. Mr. Carven, thank you for reaching out. I had no idea about these meetings. I've attached some bank statements that might interest you. It appears your wife has been reimbursing my husband for these dinners through consulting invoices. I think we should talk. Vivian Voss. The attachments made my chest tighten. Bank transfers from Zara's personal account to Eliot's business account, each one corresponding to the restaurant charges I'd found. The amounts were carefully calculated to cover not just the meals, but to make it look like legitimate business expenses. She wasn't just cheating, she was laundering the evidence through fake consulting fees. I merged all the files into a single PDF document, added timestamps and cross-references, and saved it with a simple file name: The Truth. My phone buzzed with a text from Maya, my coworker and one of the few people at the office I considered a genuine friend. Coffee later? I have gossip about your wife and the gallery guy. Town's talking. I stared at the message, feeling something cold settle in my stomach. If Maya had heard rumors, if the town was talking, then Zara and Eliot had been careless. Their discreet professional relationship wasn't as discreet as they'd thought. I typed back, rain check, working on something important. Ooh, mysterious. Everything okay? Define okay. Yikes. Call if you need backup. I know people. Maya's offer made me smile despite everything. She was 5 feet of pure loyalty wrapped in sarcasm and an impressive collection of vintage band t-shirts. If I needed someone in my corner, she'd be there without question. But first, I needed to gather more intelligence. I spent the rest of the day researching Eliot Voss, social media profiles, business records, local newspaper articles about his gallery openings. The picture that emerged was of a man who traded on charm and connections, someone who'd built his reputation on being seen with the right people at the right events. His gallery, Voss Contemporary, catered to Millbrook's small but affluent arts community, the kind of place where local doctors and lawyers went to buy conversation pieces for their waiting rooms and vacation homes. According to the gallery's event calendar, they were hosting a wine and art reception this Friday night, a perfect opportunity for Millbrook's social elite to see and be seen. An idea began forming in my mind, dangerous and appealing in equal measure. I picked up my phone and scrolled to Vivian Voss's number, which she'd included in her email signature. Mrs. Voss, this is Brooks Carven. I was wondering if you might be interested in attending an art gallery opening with me this weekend. The next morning brought another cryptic calendar entry. EV strategy session, 2 p.m. Zara had left early, claiming a breakfast meeting with clients. The house felt different without her presence, less tense, but somehow emptier. I was reviewing the evidence files when my phone rang. Vivian Voss's name appeared on the screen. Mr. Carven, I've been thinking about your invitation. Her voice was cultured, with the kind of precise diction that suggested expensive education and careful self-control. I could hear traffic in the background, the distant hum of city life. Please call me Brooks. Brooks, then, I have to ask, what exactly are you hoping to accomplish at this gallery opening? I leaned back in my chair, considering my words carefully. Honestly, I want to see their faces when they realize we know. I want them to understand that their little charade has consequences. A pause. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed. It was a rich, genuine sound that transformed her voice completely. You know what? I like that. I like that very much. Yes, Brooks, I'll be your date to my husband's gallery opening. It should be quite educational for everyone involved. We arranged to meet at 7 o'clock Friday evening. After hanging up, I found myself curious about the woman who'd agreed so readily to this unconventional alliance. I'd expected anger, tears, maybe even a refusal to get involved. Instead, I'd found someone who seemed as calculating as she was elegant. The rest of Wednesday passed in a blur of normal routine disrupted by abnormal planning. I went to work, attended meetings, reviewed code, and responded to emails, all while part of my mind worked on the problem of Zara and Eliot. That evening, Zara came home at exactly 11:15, her lipstick slightly smudged and her hair less perfect than when she'd left that morning. How was the client dinner? I asked from the couch, not looking up from my laptop. Productive, she said, kicking off her heels. We made good progress on the portfolio restructuring. At Rosewood Tavern? She froze halfway up the stairs. What? Your client dinner. Was it at Rosewood Tavern? I was thinking of making reservations there for my birthday next month. Oh, no, we went to that new place downtown. I can't remember the name. The lie came so easily, so smoothly, that I almost admired her technique. Almost. Well, I'm sure it was lovely, I said. Good night, Zara. Good night. I listened to her footsteps on the stairs, the sound of the bedroom door closing, the distant rush of water in the shower. When I was certain she was settled for the night, I opened my laptop and began planning. Thursday morning brought a text from Maya. Lunch today? I have intel. We met at Brennan's Deli, a local institution that serves sandwiches the size of small children and coffee strong enough to wake the deceased. Maya was already at our usual corner table when I arrived, her red hair pulled back in a messy bun and her vintage Ramones t-shirt barely visible under an oversized cardigan. You look terrible, she said by way of greeting. Thank you. That's exactly what every man wants to hear. I'm serious, Brooks. You've got that hollow-eyed, obsessive look, like when you were debugging that payroll system last year and didn't sleep for 3 days. I slid into the booth across from her and signaled the waitress for coffee. I've been doing some research. About your wife and gallery boy? Among other things. Maya leaned forward, lowering her voice. Okay, here's what I know. My friend Carly works at the bank downtown. She says Zara's been in there a lot lately, moving money around, setting up new accounts. And get this, she asked about the privacy policies for business transactions. The coffee arrived, and I took a grateful sip. Business transactions? Carly couldn't give me details, obviously, but she said it looked like Zara was trying to keep certain financial activities separate from your joint accounts. So Maya's friend had noticed the same patterns I'd discovered. The consulting payments, the careful separation of evidence. Zara wasn't just having an affair. She was conducting it like a business operation. There's more, Maya continued. Remember Janet from the post office? Her sister works at Rosewood Tavern. She says your wife and the gallery guy have been regulars there for months. Always the same table, always paying separately, always very intimate. Intimate how? Hand-holding, long stares, the kind of body language that says we're not discussing quarterly reports, if you know what I mean. I did know what she meant. The image of Zara leaning across a candlelit table toward Eliot Voss made my jaw clench. Brooks, Maya said gently, what are you going to do? I'm going to the gallery opening tomorrow night. That sounds like a terrible idea. Probably, but I'm not going alone. I told her about Vivian Voss, about the evidence we'd shared, about our plan to attend the opening together. Maya listened without interruption, her expression shifting from concern to something approaching admiration. Okay, she said finally. That's either brilliant or completely insane. Maybe both. Definitely both. I love it. She grinned and pulled out her phone. What time should I be there? You're not invited to this particular party, Maya. Like that's ever stopped me. Besides, someone needs to document this train wreck for posterity. I'll bring my good camera. Maya, don't Maya me. You're walking into enemy territory with a woman you barely know to confront your cheating wife and her lover in front of half the town. You need backup. She had a point. And despite my protests, I found the idea of having Maya there oddly comforting. If everything went sideways, at least I'd have one person in the room who was unquestionably on my side. Fine, I said. But stay in the background. I don't want you getting caught in the crossfire. Please, I've been handling crossfire since middle school. This is just another Tuesday for me. That evening, I sat in my home office reviewing the evidence files one more time. Everything was there. The calendar entries, the restaurant receipts, the bank transfers, the consulting invoices. A complete picture of deception, carefully documented and cross-referenced. I heard Zara's key in the front door and quickly minimized the windows on my screen. Brooks, she called. Are you home? Office, I replied. She appeared in the doorway a moment later, looking unusually nervous. Her hands fidgeted with her purse strap, and she kept glancing around the room as if expecting to find something incriminating. How was work? She asked. Fine. Yours? Good. Listen, I wanted to let you know, I'll be out tomorrow night. Gallery opening at Eliot's place, professional networking. The casual way she mentioned it made my teeth grind. She was planning to attend her lover's gallery opening while pretending it was just another business obligation. Sounds important, I said. It could be. There might be some potential clients there. People with significant portfolios who could benefit from our services. Well, I hope it's everything you're expecting. Something in my tone must have registered because she gave me a sharp look. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just that I hope your evening goes exactly as planned. She studied my face for a long moment, then shrugged. I'll be late. Don't wait up. I won't. After she left, I called Vivian Voss to confirm our plans. I'll pick you up at 7, I said. Actually, I was thinking we should arrive separately and meet there. More dramatic impact that way. Good thinking? Any particular entrance strategy? Oh, I have some ideas. Let's just say Eliot won't be expecting me to show up with a date. Her tone held a note of anticipation that made me wonder what other surprises she might have planned. Vivian, I said, what exactly did you do when you found out about the affair? Nothing yet, she replied. I've been waiting for the right moment. Tomorrow night feels like the right moment, don't you think? After we hung up, I spent the evening preparing. I chose my best suit, the charcoal gray one Zara had picked out for me last Christmas. I printed fresh copies of all the evidence and sealed them in a manila envelope. I charged my phone and made sure the PDF was easily accessible. Then I sat in my living room, in the chair where I'd confronted Zara about her ex just a few days earlier, and tried to imagine how the next 24 hours would unfold. By this time tomorrow, everything would be different. The careful pretense of our marriage would be shattered. The comfortable lies would be exposed. There would be no going back. I found myself thinking about the early days of our relationship, when Zara and I had been genuinely happy. We'd met at a conference in Boston, bonded over shared frustrations with corporate bureaucracy and a mutual love of obscure foreign films. She'd been funny then, quick-witted and spontaneous in ways that had made me fall for her completely. When had that changed? When had she become this calculating stranger who could lie to my face with such practiced ease? Maybe it didn't matter. Maybe the woman I'd fallen in love with had never really existed, or maybe she'd simply evolved into someone I no longer recognized. Either way, tomorrow night would bring an end to the uncertainty. I went to bed early, setting my alarm for 6 a.m. I wanted to be gone before Zara woke up, wanted to avoid any awkward morning conversations that might tip her off. As I lay in the dark, listening to her breathing beside me, I wondered if she was dreaming about Eliot Voss, if she was already mentally planning her outfit for the gallery opening, choosing jewelry and perfume for her lover instead of her husband. The thought should have made me angry, but instead I felt oddly calm. Tomorrow night, Zara would get exactly what she'd asked for. She'd wanted me to deal with her ex being in her life. I was about to deal with it in ways she'd never imagined. Friday evening arrived with the kind of crisp October air that made Millbrook look like a postcard. I'd spent the day at work in a state of controlled anticipation, going through the motions of normalcy while my mind rehearsed the evening ahead. Maya had stopped by my office around 3 o'clock with what she called moral support in coffee form, a large cappuccino and a chocolate chip muffin from the good bakery downtown. You ready for this? She asked, perching on the edge of my desk, as ready as someone can be for deliberately destroying their marriage in public. Hey, you're not destroying anything. You're just revealing the destruction that already happened. She had a point. Zara and Eliot had already broken our marriage. I was simply making the damage visible. I left work early and drove home to change, half expecting to find Zara there getting ready for the gallery opening. Instead, the house was empty except for a note on the kitchen counter. Working late, going straight to the opening from the office. See you tomorrow. Zid. Even her notes had become impersonal, signed with an initial like a business memo. I showered and dressed carefully, choosing a tie that Zara had always said brought out my eyes. If I was going to confront my wife's lover in front of half the town, I might as well look good doing it. Voss Contemporary occupied a converted Victorian mansion on Elm Street, its original architectural details preserved but updated with sleek modern touches. Large windows displayed rotating art installations, and the wraparound porch had been converted into an outdoor exhibition space. I parked across the street and sat in my car for a few minutes, watching well-dressed people stream through the front entrance. The local elite were out in force: doctors, lawyers, business owners, the kind of people who considered themselves Millbrook's cultural arbiters. Through the large front windows, I could see Zara near the back of the main gallery space. She wore a black cocktail dress I didn't recognize, her hair styled in loose waves that caught the gallery's track lighting. She was laughing at something Eliot had said, her hand resting on his arm in a gesture that was far too intimate for a business relationship. Eliot Voss looked exactly like what he was, a man who'd built his identity around being charming and sophisticated. Tall, lean, with prematurely silver hair that he wore slightly longer than conventional business standards. His suit was perfectly tailored, his smile practiced and confident. They looked comfortable together. Natural, like a couple who'd been together for years, instead of two people conducting a clandestine affair. My phone buzzed with a text from Vivian. I'm here. Ready when you are. I looked around and spotted her near the gallery's side entrance, elegant in a deep blue dress that complemented her blonde hair. She was scanning the crowd with the focused attention of a predator selecting prey. I got out of my car and crossed the street, the manila envelope containing our evidence tucked under my arm. The sound of conversation and laughter grew louder as I approached the entrance, punctuated by the clink of wine glasses and the soft jazz playing over the gallery's sound system. Brooks? Vivian appeared at my elbow as I reached the front steps. Up close, she was even more striking than I'd expected. Tall, poised, with a kind of understated elegance that spoke of old money and excellent breeding. "You look lovely," I said, offering her my arm. "Thank you. You clean up rather well yourself." She smiled, but there was steel behind it. "Shall we make an entrance?" We walked through the front door together, and I felt the subtle shift in the room's energy as people noticed us. Conversations paused. Heads turned. Someone near the wine table whispered something to their companion, who immediately looked in our direction. Maya materialized beside us with impressive stealth, a camera hanging around her neck and a press badge clipped to her vintage blazer. "Evening, folks," she said cheerfully. "Mind if I get a few photos? I'm covering the opening for the Millbrook Gazette's arts section." "Since when do you work for the Gazette?" I asked. "Since about an hour ago. Turns out they needed someone to cover tonight's event on short notice." She winked. Funny how these things work out. Vivian laughed, a sound of genuine delight. "I like her already." We moved deeper into the gallery, past abstract paintings and modern sculptures that probably cost more than most people's cars. The crowd was exactly what I'd expected. Millbrook's version of high society, the kind of people who attended gallery openings more for the social networking than the art appreciation. I spotted several familiar faces from around town. Dr. Patterson from the medical center, deep in conversation with the mayor's wife, the owner of the upscale restaurant where Zara and I had celebrated our anniversary 3 years ago. A handful of lawyers from the firm that handled our mortgage. All of them would have opinions about what was about to happen. All of them would have stories to tell at dinner parties for months to come. "There," Vivian said quietly, nodding toward the back of the room. "Our happy couple." Zara and Eliot were standing near a large abstract painting, their heads bent close together as they spoke with an older man I recognized as the president of the local bank. Zara's laugh carried across the room, bright and flirtatious in a way I hadn't heard in years. "She's beautiful," Vivian observed with clinical detachment. I can see why Eliot was attracted to her. He always did prefer brunettes. "You're taking this remarkably well," I said. "Oh, I'm furious. But fury is much more effective when it's cold and calculated." She smiled at a passing couple, playing the perfect gallery patron. "Besides, I've been planning this moment for weeks." "Planning what, exactly?" Before she could answer, Eliot noticed us. I watched his face cycle through confusion, recognition, and something approaching panic in the space of about 3 seconds. He said something to Zara, who turned to look in our direction. The expression on her face was worth documenting. Shock, anger, and calculation flickered across her features before settling into a mask of social politeness. She excused herself from the banker and began walking toward us, Eliot trailing behind like a reluctant shadow. "Brooks," she said when she reached us, her voice carefully controlled. "What a surprise. I didn't expect to see you here." "I decided to take an interest in the local arts scene," I replied. "Zara, I'd like you to meet Vivian Voss. Vivian, this is my wife, Zara." The two women shook hands with the kind of polite formality that barely concealed mutual assessment. Zara's eyes were sharp, trying to figure out why I was at her lover's gallery opening with his wife. "Mrs. Voss," Zara said. "How lovely to meet you. I've heard so much about you from Eliot." "Have you?" Vivian's smile was razor sharp. "How interesting. He's never mentioned you at all." The silence that followed was thick enough to cut. Eliot cleared his throat nervously, his usual confidence nowhere to be found. "Darling," he said to Vivian, "I didn't expect you tonight. You said you had other plans." "I changed my mind. Brooks invited me, and I thought it might be educational to see your gallery through fresh eyes." Maya had been circling us like a shark, her camera clicking discreetly. Now she stepped closer, her press badge prominently displayed. "Excuse me," she said brightly. "Would you mind if I got a photo? It's not often we see such an interesting group at these events." "That won't be necessary," Zara said quickly. "Oh, but I insist," Vivian replied. "It's important to document these moments, don't you think? For posterity." She moved to stand beside Eliot, slipping her arm through his with possessive elegance. I offered my arm to Zara, who had little choice but to accept it without causing a scene. Maya's camera flashed, capturing what would undoubtedly become the most talked-about photo in Millbrook's recent social history. "Perfect," Maya said. "Now, if I could just get a few quotes for the article. Mrs. Carven, how do you know Mr. Voss?" Zara's grip on my arm tightened. "We have a professional relationship. Consulting work." "How fascinating. What kind of consulting?" "Financial planning," Eliot said quickly. "Portfolio management." "At restaurants?" I asked mildly. That seems like an unusual venue for financial planning. The question hung in the air like a challenge. Around us, I could sense other conversations quieting as people began to pay attention to our little drama. Zara's social mask was starting to slip. "Brooks, perhaps we should discuss this at home." "Actually, I think this is the perfect place for discussion," I said. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the manila envelope. Since we're all here together, and since transparency is so important in both professional and personal relationships. "What is that?" Eliot asked, his voice strained. "Evidence," Vivian said pleasantly. "Brooks and I have been comparing notes about your consulting arrangement. It's quite illuminating." I opened the envelope and pulled out the first page, a copy of our shared calendar with the dinner dates highlighted in yellow. "EV dinner, 7 p.m., I read aloud. "Consult meeting, EV, late appointment, E." I looked up at the growing crowd around us. Interesting abbreviations, don't you think? Zara's face had gone pale. "Brooks, stop this. You're embarrassing yourself." "Am I?" "Because I think what's embarrassing is lying to your husband about working late while you're actually having dinner with your ex-boyfriend." I pulled out another page. "Rosewood Tavern, $247. La Bernardine, $189. All charged to our joint credit card." The crowd around us had grown larger, drawn by the unfolding drama like moths to flame. I could see phones being discreetly raised, social media posts being composed in real time. "But here's the really interesting part," I continued, pulling out the bank statements Vivian had provided. "These consulting invoices that supposedly justify the expenses. Funny thing about those, they're all fake." "That's enough," Eliot said, stepping forward. "This is neither the time nor the place for this kind of accusation." "Isn't it?" Vivian asked sweetly. "Because I think it's exactly the right time and place. After all, you've been conducting your affair so publicly. Why shouldn't the consequences be equally public?" She reached into her purse and pulled out her own set of documents. Bank statements showing payments from Zara to Eliot's business account, receipts from restaurants where they were seen together, even some rather interesting photos from social media. Maya was still taking pictures, her camera capturing every moment of the confrontation. The crowd around us had grown silent, everyone straining to hear what would happen next. Zara looked around at the sea of faces, her social reputation crumbling in real time. "This is insane. You're both insane." "Are we?" I asked. "Because from where I stand, we're the only ones telling the truth." I pulled out my phone and opened the PDF I'd created, the one containing all our evidence compiled into a single damning document. "I've already sent this to your partners at the firm," I told Zara, "and to our accountant, and to several other interested parties." Her phone began buzzing with notifications, the sound audible in the sudden quiet of the gallery. "You chose your ex," I said, my voice carrying clearly across the room. "You told me to deal with it, so I am. Oh, I chose his wife. A perfect deal, don't you think?" The silence that followed was absolute. Then someone in the crowd began to murmur, and the sound spread like ripples in a pond. Phones appeared everywhere, the story already spreading beyond the gallery walls. Zara's composure finally cracked. "My ex is still in my life," she screamed, her voice echoing off the gallery walls. "Deal with it." But it was too late. The damage was done. Her reputation, so carefully cultivated over years of professional networking and social climbing, lay in ruins around her feet. I looked around at the faces surrounding us, shocked, fascinated, already composing the stories they'd tell about this night. "The truth has a way of coming out," I said quietly. "Usually when you least expect it." And with that, I offered Vivian my arm, and we walked toward the exit, leaving Zara and Eliot standing in the wreckage of their carefully constructed deception. The cool October air felt like freedom as we stepped outside, Maya trailing behind us with her camera and a grin that could have lit up the entire street. "Well," Vivian said as we reached the sidewalk, "that went better than I'd hoped." Behind us, through the gallery windows, I could see Zara and Eliot surrounded by curious faces and pointed questions. Their affair was no longer a secret. Their lies were no longer hidden. My phone buzzed with a text from our accountant. "Received your email. We need to talk Monday morning." Another from Zara's business partner. "What the hell's going on?" And one from Maya. "Best gallery opening ever? Drinks to celebrate?" I looked back at the gallery one last time, at the woman who had been my wife standing in the ruins of her deception, and felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Relief. The game was over. The truth was out. And for the first time in a very long time, I was exactly where I wanted to be. "Drinks sound perfect," I said to Maya. "I'm buying." As we walked away from Voss Contemporary, I could hear the sound of raised voices and heated conversation spilling out into the night air. Tomorrow, all of Millbrook would know the story. By Monday, the professional consequences would begin. But tonight, for the first time in months, I was free, and that was worth everything.